All right. I am here with Christine McDannell from the Magnolia firm. Christine, how you doing today?
I'm good, Andrew. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks so much for being on. I feel like we were just talking before we started recording, and we've been working together for a while now. So super excited to have you on the podcast. But for those that may not know you or your firm, do you want to give maybe a brief introduction of yourself?
Yeah, definitely. So I have done my own transactions. I've built and sold a bunch of companies. I used a broker on the first one. And so, yeah, after all these years, 19 years of entrepreneurship and doing my own deals, people were coming to me last year and wanting me to help with their deals, some friends of mine. And I came in as a consultant. I did their transactions, loved it. So I was like, hey, let's make it official. Like I've always wanted to start a boutique M&A firm. And so business brokerage. And yeah, we just had our 1 year anniversary. It's October. So
Congrats.
no, thanks. And it's been a wild ride. I mean, we started last October. We closed 5 transactions in the month of December. It was absolutely nuts. So
Wow.
yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun.
Nice. So, give it. So you're, an M&A advisor, and that can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people in terms of, what you do. How do you basically what do you do? For those that may not be familiar with an M&A advisor, how would you describe, the benefit that you play in the role of, an acquisition for a founder business?
Ooh, great question. So we're strictly on the seller side, right? And a lot of times these are companies we source out for strategics. A lot of these types of companies we work with. So we need to find somebody to acquire them. And so we do a lot of outbound. We also have a lot of inbound. So a lot of other listings are smaller. And those are going to be first time buyers, which I love. I love holding their hand through the process because they're typically unrepresented, especially a lot of them come, we got a lot of seller leads from you guys, which we love and we're super grateful for. But then the buyers come from all different platforms. And yeah, so we literally take our seller. We don't take a lot of listings because we're boutique and we want to sell them very quickly. So we don't want to be overwhelmed. And so we're very picky. We have a waiting list. We definitely charge more than the average advisor. And that's by design because we're literally doing A to Z. So we are covering everything. We're doing a pitch deck for them. We're doing the ad copy. We're running them all the way through LOI, all the way through the purchase agreement, all the way to the day the money's wired in the account. And we're pretty much handling everything on the back end. Our team is amazing. So the only time I'm bringing my seller in is once we've pre-qualified a potential buyer. I found out, do they have, access to capital? Are they qualified? Are they serious? Then we're coming on a Zoom with this actual seller for 30 minutes to see if it's a fit, to see if they want to write an offer. So it's a pretty smooth transaction, but it's a lot on the back end for us, but we love it.
Nice. I love how the A to Z reference, because I've seen you do it multiple times. And just for additional context for listeners, Christine is one of our top M&A advisors within the MicroAcquire network. So we've definitely appreciate all the help that you do for founders. But now I'm just thinking, in terms of the deals that you've closed, it sounds like a number of them in 1 year, which is really impressive. Do you have maybe like one or two of the favorite deals that you've helped get acquired that you'd like to share?
Yes, definitely. I have 2 quick stories. So Grace with TripKit was on your podcast not too
Yeah.
long ago. So we did her transaction. So that was great. She's an amazing, we're picky in a lot of ways. Also, the founders we work with, right? I just want to make sure we get along and we vibe because, it could get stressful. It could be an emotional roller coaster, no matter how much we take off their plate, right? It's an emotional transaction. It's usually the biggest transaction of their life, right? So, Grace was amazing to work with. That's such a rad company. The buyer was incredible. He made a decision very quickly on closing the transaction. It was a short, from when he saw the company to when we closed, was maybe 1 to 2 weeks. It was very quick. He was a first-time buyer. So he was great to work with. So that was one story. Another story was a recent transaction where we got the seller from you guys. And she was amazing. We loved working with her. And so we actually had one LOI. And then the next LOI that came right in was for 40K more. This guy, he just was like, I want this company so bad, all cash, full price. And he's like, but I'll pay more than the other LOI because the other LOI was full price, 20% seller
Mm,
carry. So there's a little bit of liability on my seller, right? And I want to do what's best for them. And so, yeah, he came in 40K extra. And I said, hey, we'll say no to the other guy if you can close within 1 day. And he did. It was so crazy. So from the
Nice.
morning, he came in and then he met with the seller in the afternoon. We did the LOI same day, and then we did due diligence, and then he closed and wired the money the very next day. So happy seller for sure. And again, he was amazing too, unrepresented also. So again, I love working both sides of the deal. It's fun for me.
Yeah, I can definitely tell by your enthusiasm, and then also just, I mean, the success of the deals closing speaks for itself. I'm gonna throw kind of a curveball question at you. So I was on LinkedIn today, and I saw a picture of you and Richard Branson. What I didn't have a chance to look through that post, but can I get like the 2 minute version of that story? And for those listening, it was a picture of Christine and Richard Branson. It looked like having like lunch together. That's
It was breakfast, but close enough in Paris.
we can
Yeah.
call
If anybody,
brunch and call it in the
yeah,
middle.
I know, right? So yeah, anybody listening to this, like I'm great at LinkedIn. If you want to connect on LinkedIn, would love that. I put it as one of my featured posts, so you'll see it on there because I haven't really shared this story. It was 5 years ago. I never shared it on LinkedIn. Yeah, he's my business idol, and it was my dream to meet him in person. And so I tell the whole story. There's even a video, and it's fun watching the video because it's like flashbacks all the way to 2013 of when I was obsessed with him. I'd make video blogs and talk about him. So like it shows that whole, all those years of that. And then, yeah, 2017, I exited my last company, or one of my companies. I've had a few. It was a real big exit, and I wrote a sizable check to his charity. And so I wrote two checks. One was small, and that one was big. So yeah, he is
Nice.
amazing. It was so much fun having breakfast with them. I'm a massive fan, massive.
I'm a huge fan too. What I've heard of, tell me if this is true. So I've heard of people. He's one of those entrepreneurs that's kind of reached celebrity status. Like people will come up to him, they know him. He's kind of a global icon, if you will. But he doesn't have security. He's like a really down to earth person. Very approachable.
Oh yeah, I
Is that
ran up.
accurate?
It's very accurate. In 2015, he was in speaking in San Diego, and he was walking off the stage, and I ran up to the stage, and I handed him the first check. The first check was only $1,000. That's all I could do for his charity. I was like, Richard Branson, I love you so much. You're so inspiring. I gave him the check and I ran, and he called my cell phone like half an hour later to thank me, which is so crazy.
What?
But no, there's no security. And I just ran up to him.
Yeah.
But everybody at that event was like, Richard, I want you to sign my book. I want a picture with you. I want you to invest in my company. Like, it was sad to see like everybody trying to take from him. So I think it was different for someone just to give him a check and run out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's so down to earth. Yeah, he doesn't have security or nothing like that. He's a good guy.
Yeah, that amazed me. I can't remember who told me that, but it was I just asked a question like, who's like the most like down to earth like person that you met that's kind of, like a billionaire or something like that. And they were like, oh, Richard Branson. Richard Branson, like we were in I think they were raising capital for a fund or something like that. And Richard Branson was just kind of walking around in like sandals or something like that.
Yeah, there's
Um,
this saying that says, don't meet your idols because they'll disappoint you. There's like a quote. And yeah, he exceeded what I thought of him as a human and said, yeah, we got to talk about, him going to space. And he thought he was going to do it within 6 months. Virgin Galactic, he said he spent double what he would think he would spend. He said it was super crazy stressful, which is kind of interesting to see a billionaire like still get, just a little stressed when we talked about that. And I know he just went recently. So like, woof, he was supposed to do in 2018. So I was excited to
yeah.
see him accomplish it.
Yeah. I mean, he's an amazing figure, no doubt. So moving back to acquisitions as the topic. Given that you work with so many different businesses, what would be maybe some reasons you would not work with a particular startup if they're looking to sell their business? Like what are some yellow flags or red flags?
Yeah, and I've watched some of your amazing previous podcasts, and you guys have talked about it before. And you guys are kind of great about, on your marketplace, weeding out the ones that like can't really, aren't obviously ready to sell. So zero revenue or being upside down, obviously. So pre-revenue, that's not going to work. And it's sad because I think these people, people spend like, and I've had a tech company, I get it. You spend 600K on building the software, and you think you're at least going to get that or more. and that's not necessarily true. So that's kind of hard to tell people.
I gotta say that's my least favorite, just because we do see a lot of that. Like, well, I spent 500,000 building this, so it's now therefore worth 500,000, and it's no. There's so many factors. Like, you probably could have developed it at a lower cost, and number two, no one cares, and so that's a tough one. But we see that quite a bit, so I agree with you there.
Yeah, and then the others, and again, we have a waiting list, so we can be super duper picky. Anybody listening, it's definitely still a seller's market. The R word isn't scaring anybody. The Fed raising rates is not. Like, it's just a seller's market still, which is amazing. So we're able to be this picky, but reputation is huge. I tell everybody, even starting a company that I consult with, I'm like, all you need to care about is your reputation from day one. Like, guard that like crazy, because there's so much value with that. So, we're looking at, like, we Google the sellers. I do more due diligence than the buyers. I swear to God. I'm in the Facebook groups. I'm looking at comments. I'm on the Instagram page. I'm looking at comments. Are there people complaining? Are they replying back and helping them out? So yeah, we're big on, they got to have a really good reputation and 5 stars and not a bunch of complaints online. These are online businesses, so that's important.
Nice. I couldn't agree with that more. And I think, one unfortunate thing that we see a lot of microacquire is founders kind of being their own worst enemies, where they're really difficult to work with, or they withhold certain information, or they're not necessarily like, they aren't sure if they want to sell sometimes. And they're very standoffish. And I think that has led to some really great companies just not being sold, because the founder just doesn't have that professionalism in terms of selling their business. I'm not sure if I'm wording this correctly, but just being difficult to work with, because when you buy the business, it's not like buying a car where you just get the keys and they're gone. There's usually some period of transition, and you want to know that this person is going to deliver on their word. And if you start off a call just on like very hard stance, like, I'm firm on this price, and it just feels like there's no I guess leeway in terms of building a relationship or connection that's going to go beyond just wiring money. I've always seen that as kind of a pivot. What's your thoughts on that?
Oh my gosh, you're exactly right. Okay, for the seller and the buyers, right? Same with the buyers. We've had 6 LOIs coming in on one deal, 2 weeks of negotiating all of them, which I love negotiating. So it was fun. But some of the guys weren't that nice, right? And so, or some of these potential buyers come in with attitude from the start. They don't build rapport with the seller. And the seller, no matter how much money, they might pick somebody else, right? Because they're like, they're gonna have to hand off, they're gonna have to train, they're gonna have to like that person. And I think that's the number one thing we're proud of at the firm. I'm like, I'm gonna find you the most amazing buyer. Like, the money, of course, that's important. I am gonna find you the most amazing buyer. And like, people can go to our website, you can read our testimonials, you can talk to my sellers, because they love all their buyers. So, and then you're right, we've been lucky, the sellers, I've never had a seller waiver on selling their company ever. We're not attracting that. I think we attract, most of our sellers are in their 30s, it's their first exit and they're ready. They got the next project already rolling, right? They're like, we got to sell this quick. Like, my next company is already growing. Grace is an example of that. So every single seller that comes to me is like ready to go. Like, they're like, I wanted to sell the business yesterday. So I haven't had that. They're always flexible. It's sometimes too flexible. The 2 we recently took off your guys' platform that we're helping, they were way underpriced. I was like, so we increased it significantly, because I was like, hey guys, but again, their next venture is making so much money that it becomes lost opportunity cost. So they're like, let's just unload it quick. I'm like, hey, let's raise it and unload it quick. How about that?
Yeah, I like that. I like how you brought up, the buyer too, because buyers can also be, just as bad as, because on MicroAcquire, you send an initial message, and first impressions are so important in terms of like introducing yourself, giving a compliment. Why are you interested in the business? And just that little bit of effort can go such a long ways, instead of just, what's your numbers and what's your price? Because that's typically, I very rarely have seen, unless the number is kind of like, all right, well, I'll put up with anything for this. But generally, there needs to be, like you said, some good rapport between the two parties because, you're transferring assets, you're planning out a transition, you're planning out a close date, maybe specific terms where you can be flexible. It just goes so much farther when there's that level of, I could work with this person and I would be happy seeing this person run something that I had built. So I love that you brought that up. I ask this question on pretty much every podcast. So you probably know it's coming, but what are maybe like the top 3 tips you give to sellers when you're working with them in terms of selling their business?
So this one might be a little woo woo, but I've done it so many times on my own. I've had friends do it and it works. It's crazy. But I have them manifest like the perfect buyer and the way the whole transaction is going to go, but in like past tense. So it's like, this was my buyer. He's so amazing. The transaction, I only had my one friend, Sarah, she said, she wrote a whole thing and she's like, I'm going to sell to the first person I pitch, blah, blah, blah. And she shares it with me. And I'm like, Sarah, like, I don't think you're going to sell to the first person we pitch.
Mm-hmm.
And what's so funny is she only did a total of about 7 or 8 pitches. And the first guy is the one that bought her company. So like this manifesting stuff really works. So, they're reading it each day I just believe in that stuff, right? It's like just kind of creating that. So that's kind of one tip that I think you guys should, people should write it out, like past tense, like it already happened. And I've done it and it works. And so second tip for sellers, there's so many, be ready for kind of the emotional roller coaster again. I think some aren't, towards the end, especially. Oh, sorry. This is my tip. This is tip 2.5, is don't spend the money. I tell them multiple times, once we get that LOI, even once we get that PA signed, right? Purchase agreement, not until the money's wired. I go, do not go shopping. Do not buy a house. Do not buy a car. Don't spend the money even in your head because if it falls through, you're going to be super disappointed. So do not. And then one bought a house right before close. The deal like fell out. And it's tricky with the house because you need to show that revenue, you need to show income. So it's kind of like, it's super tricky to do that, right? Luckily, we found her another buyer super quick within 3 weeks. Thank God. We closed on the same closing date with another buyer. It was like magic. But so she's fine. I know, it's crazy. Thank God. Because she was like crying on the phone. And I was like, oh my God, how are we going to do this? And then I did it with another of my sellers. I said, hey, that's the one that got the 2 LOIs simultaneously. I said, hey, like, I can't promise this will happen, but this happened back in April. It fell through. It had a closing date of April 30th, but we found another buyer and closed on that day. And then with the second one, we actually closed earlier because I'm like, I can't promise she will do that. And we closed even earlier. So it was all good.
Man, that's absolutely crazy I agree with you on all points. One piece of advice that I've always been given from other entrepreneurs that have gone through exits is not to spend the money for a whole year, 12 months. And I did this with just so it sinks in. You don't change your life. You don't go out and buy something stupid, which you probably will if you get a windfall of money. That was advice from my initial investor, Christian Freeland, in my first company. Depending on how big of the acquisition it is, if it's truly life changing where you can buy a house, I'm a big proponent of just wait even like 3 months, 6 months. And then the last thing I would probably add, I love your tips. Is just, continue to sell until close. Like the deal is not done until it's done and the wire is transferred or the earnout is over. So.
No, I'm glad you said that. So we actually coach our sellers up front. I'm like, we're going to handle everything. Don't worry about us. Okay. All I care about is you growing your company. Do whatever it takes. Like I run marathons. So I always say it's like mile 23, you're on it. You got 3 miles more to go and you have to sprint that. So like it's like starting a startup vibe, right? I'm like, it's going to be a lot of work. So just please do that because that helps tremendously when these prospective buyers see it continue to grow. It helps when it's under contract. They're like, wow, she's still growing. This is great. It helps from it falling out. And a last tip, which I don't ever see this, and thank God I did it with my own transaction, that big one, is send like a weekly exciting email. And we do this, we help with the seller do this. every single week we're sending that buyer like an exciting email of like, hey, this is a new initiative we launched this week. Hey, these are our sales numbers. Hey, et cetera, et cetera. And keeping them completely excited, engaged the whole way until the close. I had to do it for 3.5 months every single week because it was an
Yeah.
loan and it got delayed, and like it almost fell out because the appraisal came in so low and I stuck to the full price offer. And but I know they would have dropped if they weren't so excited and engaged and watching me grow the company for 3.5 months. So that's a big one.
Yeah, I think that's just great wisdom in terms of how to think about selling your business, or just because acquisitions can be such a distraction in terms of how much time, energy, especially if it doesn't work out. And honestly, sometimes the best distraction can be just growing your business. Like, obviously engage with sellers, but don't if you drop everything and your business is neglected because of it. I haven't seen this on microquire, but I've read just countless stories of a seller dragging them along for like 6 months or something like that, taking tons of resources. So not only is it costly to the growth of your business, but it's costly just in terms of your time, which is, time is money, time is resources. So I highly recommend to keep growing. And one thing that, just to give a personal tidbit of my own, when I sold business apps, we got an initial LOI and had to basically continue growing at the same pace for 3 months. And then we would start due diligence, which was kind of nice. It was like, oh, okay, I don't know where this is going to go, but you're just telling me to focus on growing my business. And so, we obviously kept growing the business. We didn't do anything crazy in terms of, accelerating. We just kind of were growing at the same predictable pace. But I think that sort of mental exercise could be helpful for some founders of just, even if you get an LOI, like just keep growing your business like in the exact same way as even if you didn't get an LOI. And then once it comes into due diligence, like keep growing your business. Because again, a deal is not done until it's completely done and the money is actually like in your hands. Let's see, what else do I got? I guess, what do you see coming for the next year in terms of acquisitions? I would agree with you in terms of we haven't really seen too much change in terms of acquisitions on our end at Microacquire. Have you seen, or do you foresee anything changing in the next 12 months?
I mean, we definitely have had even more of a flood of people that want to sell their company, but it's not out of like, oh, I'm scared of I don't even like saying recession because it's like, you got to just press on no matter what. And actually the biggest companies were grown and built during recessions, mine included. So I actually I'm a wartime general and at peacetime. So I actually like those times. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't hear that right now. It's not like, oh my God, I'm scared, I'm going to sell my company. There's none of that. It's like, oh, I'm building another company. And then same, and I foresee that in the near future. I've actually talked with other brokers and advisors. Like I wasn't there, in 08 doing this. So they said 08 to 2010 was like their heyday because like the stock market and everything else is so volatile. And that's what's happening right now. Crypto, stock market, everybody's jumping out to something more stable, something with an ROI, right? That's predictable. So then they're starting to buy businesses. COVID made a massive, oh my gosh, I have a lot of corporate first-time buyers, people getting out of corporate because they had that freedom during COVID. Now they're back at work and not working from home and they don't like it. So a
Yeah.
lot of them, and they could pull from their 401k with the Robs, right? Especially if they quit. And so, yeah, I foresee that continuing on. If people are like, I just want to control my own destiny and I want to buy a business that's cash flowing. So again, that's why we don't, and the magical number seems to be about 120K net profit a year because somebody can quit their job, maybe not in California, but quit their job and like live on that, right? And
Yeah.
so that's this magical number. So yeah, we're typically not taking any clients under that. They need to at least net out that much in SDE. So yeah, I think it's going to be good for the next whenever future for a while here.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the only concern I have in the market, and we'll see what happens, but just companies that raised a lot of capital in the venture markets, we've actually had to turn away some that raise millions of dollars and the revenue is less than a couple 100,000, and we're just like, I don't know who's going to buy this. Like, you need to essentially, this is an acqui-hire situation. So I think we're going to see maybe more of that. But in terms of those that are building sustainable, profitable, healthy businesses, I would put a bet that those are going to be valued even more, just because, like you said, there's going to be a lot of capital cycling out of public markets, and even just, private startup investing over into, maybe jumping into entrepreneurship through acquisition. But if I had a crystal ball, I'd obviously be making bets on it, but I have no idea. That's just a guess.
I'm so glad you brought that up. And I was part of that. Like, I started a tech company in 2018. We sold it last year, but not for, it was very expensive to build out. Of course, we didn't hit revenue. And so we had to sell it at a discount last year. But it was like a fun time, I was in Los Angeles. It's 2018. We were raising on a 10 million cap pre-rev, which is like absolutely insane, right?
Yeah.
I've been through that. And you're exactly right. So now startup it was so sexy to be a startup. I already see the tide shifting, and I'm so glad because you guys are on the forefront of this, which is really cool. I promise you that now the sexy thing is like acquiring companies. Like, I already see it, like acquiring cash flowing businesses, flipping them, like playing that game, not playing the like raise capital, burn a bunch of cash, not hit revenue game. I think that's so many people have seen the fallout of WeWork and, all those companies. There's massive fallout. So yeah, I think you've nailed it. I'm excited that you changed your name to acquire.com. I think that was super smart. So
Yeah.
excited about that, doing that change.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of work. So wish us luck, but the word is out.
It is out.
So I got just maybe three quick questions. You care if we do a bit of rapid fire and then
Let's do it.
wrap this up? What's your favorite book?
Ooh, 4 Hour Work Week since it came out, 2005. Love it. It
All
changed my
right.
life.
I have never read that book, and
Ooh.
I feel like I need to. So I will now read that book, given you
Yeah.
recommended it. What is your favorite movie?
Oh my gosh. So honestly, I'm not a movie person. Oh, it's Wolf of Wall Street. I don't watch many, many movies, but I love that movie for some reason.
It's a good movie. I remember I saw it when it first came out in the theaters, and we were all just like, "Oh my gosh, this is a true story! Like, are you kidding me?"
Yeah, Jordan Belfort is quite the character. So I'm sure it was embellished a lot, but I love that one.
Yeah, I mean most movies are okay. Final question: who's maybe an entrepreneur aside from Richard Branson that you think is awesome? You look up to. It could be someone big. It could be someone maybe not many people know about. Um,
Okay, great question. Alex Hermosi. If you guys want to look him up on YouTube, he's sharp and he's young. He's like 30 years old, sold companies for multi-millions. I forgot how much. It's insane. His marketing advice, his business advice, his, strategy, operations, hiring. I mean, the whole gamut. So I'm any kind, he's pumping out content like nobody's business. I forget how many posts he does on all these different platforms. He's hitting it pretty hard. And so you guys should check him on YouTube. I learn tons every time. And I've seen him speak and Layla speak live recently at a marketing conference. So yeah, have you heard of him?
I have. He has a book. I think it's called Million Dollar Offers, and he also owns acquisitions.com. Yeah, I've heard him on podcasts. He's a very unique and smart business. I believe it's fitness related, but I'm not too familiar. But yeah, I definitely have respect for what he's accomplished. I think he's like 32 or 33, and
Yeah,
he's
he's super young. Yeah. So how about you? Who's your favorite right now?
that's a good question. I'm gonna take the cop out answer and just say my team.
Oh, that's
Because
great.
they help me out with just so much stuff. I am by far not the smartest person at MicroAcquire, so and it's also just so fun to work with the people that are at the company. So that's my cop out answer. But if I had to say a celebrity, I would probably say maybe like Mark Cuban or like Richard Branson. I really love that. Like, okay, like you're a billionaire, you got it. That's cool. Like, but I don't think that's the cool part. I think what's cool is how they're humble, but they're up so high. Like I've seen videos of Mark Cuban just outside of like a Trader Joe's giving a guy an interview, just And it's just like you're such a normal person, and I highly respect people who just don't change when they see success, because too many do, unfortunately.
Yeah, and shout out to your team too. So James and Paul, no, your team, Andrew, is amazing. I love working with them. It's so much fun. I love watching your guys' growth. Like what you guys are doing is really needed, really needed.
Well, I definitely appreciate that, and we're super thrilled to be partnered with you, and looking forward to helping more startups get acquired. So, Christine, thanks for joining me on this podcast. I had a blast.
Yeah, no, same here. Thanks, Andrew.
So, for those that maybe want to follow you, get a hold of you, where's the best place to contact you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely personally LinkedIn, go for it. And I'm happy to communicate there. It's very easy. You can check out our website at themagnoliafirm.co. And kind of
I'll
there's tons
I'll
of stuff.
I'll
Yeah.
put that I'll put that in the show notes.
And then on social media, I play this character called Broker Bob, where I like dress up as an old man and it's pretty, I just like being entertaining, especially on social media. So we're on TikTok and Instagram, the Magnolia Firm. So you can check that out. I'm sure the brokers love that, but
Oh, I haven't seen that. I'll definitely check that out. All right, Christine, it's been fun.
okay, definitely. Thanks, Andrew.
All right, see you. Cheers.
Okay.